on all this. He had a conversation with him. By this point, we had speakerphones, so we were listening to each other's calls, so we could really tune into the vibe and concentrate with each other and check what was going right and what was going wrong. And he explained that we had access to all these people who were dreadfully hungry and in a really bad way. And I don't know if you know, as a side note, but we've got a screwed up system in this country, because refugees, they're not allowed to legally work because they're refugees, and they're not allowed to claim benefits while their papers are being processed. So basically they've got a choice: they can do something illegal or they have to live on handouts, and a lot of them live on handouts because they don't want to jeopardize the process they're going through to potentially get citizenship in this country. So we explained this to him, and he said something which was awesome. And I guess this is one of the things that I've learned, is that a lot of these corporations or companies that, groups like this are very quickly demonized and say these are the bad people. These are not the bad people, these are people, and there are no bad people. There are people in bad situations, there are people who haven't learned lessons yet, but all these people, if you're a human being, you have some light inside you, and that light, like a light bulb can have dirt on it, but it's still bright. That dirt might need to be wiped off, but it's bright, man. And then if you're alive, that's what it is to be alive, to have that light on inside you. And this guy on the phone, Peter O'Reilly, connected with him, and he said, hungry people, not on my watch. And he stamped a piece of paper that meant they sent us a 25-ton lorry to our house. 25 tons, I don't know if you guys know what that is. That's an 18-wheeler. That's the biggest vehicle that you can put on the roads. And it arrived, and we live in a little cul-de-sac down like a little dead end, and we're not like most of these, there's pallets of food, pallets and pallets and pallets and pallets of food. Normally you're meant to have like trucks that lift these pallets up and move them around, people drive them, but we were just keezers, man, and this truck backed up and it closed the road because it was too small for the thing to come down, and all the neighbors were a little bit stressed because their precious cars couldn't move for like however long. And I went to everybody and said, listen, I'm not sending this truck away. There's food for hungry people on this truck, and we're going to get all this food into our house. And you've got a choice, and you can make it right now. You can help us carry this food, and you can move your cars faster, and you've got a good story to tell, and you can do something nice, or you can bitch and moan and slow us up. It's your choice. Everybody stopped everything, and I mean everybody. I mean the shops up around the corners, the estate agent people took off their shirts and ties and came, and it became this very trippy kind of community building activity where everyone was desperate to get this damn food off the truck. It took us about 4 or 5 hours of constant hardcore physical labor to carry this food box by box by box out, and we filled the entire house. I mean the living room, you could only walk like one person at a time around the house. Every single bedroom, the back shed, and in the front garden we piled it up about like nearly a story high with bean cans and everything else. And that's kind of when everything went a little bit mad, because our neighbors knew that something was up, and the people across the road, they knew something was up. People started to call newspapers and stuff like that. So while we're carrying these boxes, suddenly BBC News turned up. But like, what's going on here? It's like, rah, okay, it's a long story. We were on the phone, and and the newspapers started coming in, and then the crew got larger and larger. And on that day, we managed to get enough food to feed 75,000 people. It's probably like the most proud moment of my life. And when I say that, like, bear in mind, I'm no joker, man. I've got no money. I didn't know who Peter O'Reilly, or it's not like he's my cousin's best friend's tennis player or nothing. This is a guy who just phoned up out the blue and said, listen, this is our deal, man. Can you help us out? And 75,000 people on one day. Every single soup kitchen in the whole of London came to us. They sent their vans, and so we had the synagogues who run soup kitchens. We had the Hare Krishna came to us. We had loads of different Christian groups, loads of different kind of non-denomination, everyone, and they were filling their van up to the point of being absolutely packed. They were driving off, and then they were coming back. What the hell, man? This was like more food than we could ever cope with, and we were filling up all these stores. And we felt really good about ourselves, much better than we had felt like about 4 months earlier when the TVs and the stereos had been arriving. This was awesome, man. This felt really good. And suddenly we realized that, hey, there's absolutely no limit on what we can do as human beings. If you're motivated, if you're positive, if you insist upon seeing the very best in everyone around you, and you do not move off that. The way I see it is like the world, or the kind of perceivable reality that we live in, is in a kind of state of constant earthquakey-like flux. But there is one piece of solid ground, and that solid ground is light and positivity. And if you insist on standing on it, and that's a tough gig, man, because you know, a lot of these companies that we might call up, very easy to see them as dark. Oh, you're off the solid ground there. It's very easy to lose faith in yourself. You're off the solid ground. But if you insist on sticking to these very basic principles, which I subsequently learned are echoed in loads of different places, that's solid. And from solid ground, it's a bit like baseball. You can knock home runs out every time as long as you're not on the shaky ground. Boom, boom. So we decided that we would take it to the next level, and we thought we'd try and do the world's largest ever random act of kindness. So we hit the phones, and in one day over Christmas, on the 22nd of December as it goes, about 2 months later, we gave away 35 tons worth of stuff in one afternoon, and we gave it to loads of different charities, including all the children's hospitals and all the different children's groups that were doing toy runs to try and raise toys for kids who didn't have it, to old age pensioners' homes, as well as just randomly on the street. And that's kind of like one of my favourite things, that we do loads of things now to kind of continue telling you more about it, but one of my favourite things is to shock and awe people on the street, to stop them and go, hi, how you doing here? This is for you, now I'm going to go, bye. It's a really good feeling, and on that day, because everyone that came and watched us on the news before, we had like 70 people, so suddenly this stupid outfit that we were wearing, I would look it up, man, and there were legion, and they were just everywhere. There were kindness offensive people, and the kind of dream of sharing what it is to share and facilitating other people, and people that you wouldn't have thought would have been there. We have lawyers who come volunteer with us, who work on big nasty cases. We've got policemen who come and dress up, and that's another story, but you know, they're there and they're really enjoying what they're doing, and they're giving some kid a toy or an old lady a bar of chocolate, and they have big smiles on their faces. So these aren't necessarily the people that you'd imagine. We don't go preach to the choir. Like, I kind of see all you guys pretty much, give or take, as the choir. We go preach to the people who throw vegetables at us, because we figure they're the ones who need the preaching the most, I guess, on some level. And we don't come and say, look, have you considered letting love and light into your life, realigning your chakras and getting yourself a crystal? We go and say, listen, man, you're going to feel really good if you do this, and your company's going to look good when you do this, because you're doing something good. Come and experience this with us and see how you feel. Just remember how you feel, and come and have a go at this. And that's kind of our bread and butter. We go out there and speak to all these guys that most people don't think of speaking to, because they've got such a kind of, I don't know, they're so tainted in a lot of people's minds that these things are negative. But as I said before, that tainting exists in the mind of the perceiver. There's not actually the reality out there. You can change it and make it like you see fit. And if what you see is positive stuff, you can make stuff come in line with that and make it that way. I'll rattle through some more of our history very briefly. On Pancake Day, which I think is a ridiculous day, and that's what we thought. We thought, can we put some meaning in Pancake Day? So we got on the phones, and we gave away 500,000 pancakes on Pancake Day, the vast majority of which we gave to charity groups so they could have Pancake Day celebrations with their clients, people who normally don't get to celebrate the better stuff, because, you know, it's expensive to do and a lot of trouble to do and stuff like that. So we did a Pancake Day event. And then last summer, we did one of my favourite ones. It was kind of like a kindness flash mob, and we called it the Everyday Kindness Awards. And we thought that it wasn't just good enough to demonstrate this and kind of invite people to participate, but we thought we actually wanted to celebrate ordinary, kind people. Because I'm sick and tired of seeing mediocre actors and terrible musicians get all the awards and the big ceremonies and all the rest of it. Because I like a good guitarist and enough respect, but give me a break, you know. But nice people deserve a little bit of, you know, an up as well, and a bit of kudos as well. So what we did is we got some actors. I'm going to show you some of these clips because they're quite good fun. But we set up some actors around different parts of London, and they were feigning that they needed help. So we had the lost tourist who needed directions to a landmark. We had the blizzard of paper where someone was dropping everything they had on them and needed help picking up those things and collecting them back. And what was it? We had lost tourist, and the treacherous stairs, a mother who needed help with a pram up and down the stairs. and we all hid around bushes and behind pillar boxes and all that kind of stuff, and the actors were there, and then real members of the public who had no idea they were in the middle of basically a big-scale comedy routine, they jumped in to help. And one of the amazing things that I noticed that day is how helpful people are. We never had to wait more than 60 seconds. It was like white on rice. Bang! People were right there and helping